Where are you calling? Where are you?
I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, cool, cool. Do you know Bridget McCarthy?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay.
It's so I know I had emailed you before asking if y'all had planned to expand or anything, and you had sent me a couple of links. I didn't get a chance to check them out, but what do you mind telling me what they're about?
There are two organizations that are service organizations for arts practitioners. One is the Shakespeare in Prison Network, which has a Facebook page, and we uh, do conferences every 2 years.
Okay.
The last conference we couldn't do face to face, so we spread it out over a year and did programming via Zoom and then recorded it all. So there's a library now that has begun that has lots of information about different arts practitioners and different ways
Oh wow.
to do that. And then the other one is a bigger organization called the Justice Arts Coalition, which is a conglomerate really of all different kinds of arts practices. Whereas Shakespeare in Prison Network is obviously more geared towards those of us that are using Shakespeare and theater
Right.
in prisons. Jack's covers all and also includes drama therapists that are working in prisons using the arts. And that site has a map of the United States divided into regions, and you can go to your region and look and see what's else is happening in Atlanta or the surrounding area of Atlanta. So it's a good resource, and
I know that's cool.
yeah,
I didn't know that there were other people like you guys like doing similar things. How did you like get to starting Behind Bars? Like was that something that you had planned throughout or was it an opportunity that came up to you?
really more an opportunity. I didn't wake up one day and say, "Gee, I think I'm going to go knock on a prison door and see if I can get in there and do some Shakespeare with those fellers."
Right, right.
Um, it was really just, again, it's a sequence of events. My career has had very little planning when it comes to deciding, really, I just had, I, like a good improv player, I just said yes to
Right.
stuff that came my way. And when you keep saying yes, you get opportunities to do things,
Mhm.
and then more opportunities come, and so it was really because I believe that the arts can heal,
Yeah.
that uh, the arts can help to transform human behavior by getting humans to think differently. When you think differently, you act differently, so behaviors change. And then really being interested in Shakespeare, who was an outlier, who wrote about outliers, uh, marginalized populations and stuff. That's always been my interest as an artist, that art is healing. It's entertaining, but it's also healing, and it's really in the healing that becomes makes the art become very meaningful. And human beings need to have there are four human truths that I've come to know doing this work. One is that human beings need community, unless there's mental illness involved that creates isolations, but human beings need to belong. That human beings are narrative creatures, so we need story. And the moment that we start telling stories, uh, our ears prick up, we pay attention, and that art and that behavior can change, but thinking has to change. And the only way to change thinking is through the process of reflection, which is really the training that goes a lot into being an actor. So it's why I use theater and Shakespeare and playing characters. I mean, I really think of Shakespeare as a rehearsal for life. And then the last is meaning, that human beings have a deep need of connection to meaning, that their life and is going to have meaning. And for people that end up in prison, of course, those that are guilty of what they were accused of and charged and tried and convicted of, that they don't want to be remembered. Who wants to be remembered for the worst thing that you did? And that within meaning leads to hope. And you can't really do any transformation without having hope. That's what is a great motivator. So the work that I do is in prison is very hopeful. I profoundly believe that every prisoner who joins Shakespeare Behind Bars and commits to it, our value system, that one day they're going to get out of prison. I have to live in that belief, even if they have life after their name, even if they have 155 years of incarceration they have to serve, which of course they can't. You're not going to live that long. Yeah. These are the things that for the last 26 years I have been exploring and have dedicated my life to, and my career. I created the program when I was the artistic director of the Kentucky Shakespeare Festival, which is the oldest free Shakespeare festival in North America. This will be the 62nd summer of free Shakespeare in Central Park in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was at the head of the organization for 20 years, and then I left because I wanted to spend the latter part of my career really focused on Shakespeare Behind Bars. So I turned that one program into a nonprofit and began to raise money to support myself doing the work. And that's what I've done since full-time, since 2008, when I moved from Louisville to Western Michigan and started over.
Wow, that's crazy. Like, I know whenever we were watching the documentary, just thinking about the setup and like how you guys were able to create like a theater in the prison on like the budget that you had, like, and it looked so well done, and it looked like everyone really enjoyed everything. I know you mentioned a reflection for the characters. So in the documentary, it states that the characters casted themselves, correct? So
yes, the actors from the very beginning, I let the actors pick the monologues, the sonnets, and the scenes that they wanted to work on. Eventually, when we got into producing a full play, they oftentimes chose the play, and each of them chose a character to play.
So did you do that just to like not have conflict within who plays what character, or is that just with who they connected with?
Actually, it was to overcome conflict, that there may well be a couple of guys that want to play the same character. So then we had to decide, okay, do we want to have 4 Hamlets, and each of the 4 Hamlets, we figure out how to produce the play using 4 actors who are going to play Hamlet, and how do we divide up the scenes, and what do we do with that? That there sometimes would be conflict with, well, who bet, and what we arrived at was who in the circle most needs to play Hamlet. Playing Hamlet will deliver to them what will they bring to it, which is important, but then what will they learn from playing, exploring that role, that situation. Again, it goes back to theater is the closest art form to reality, because it happens in the present moment, connected with actors playing characters. So the playwright's engaged, the characters are engaged, the audience is engaged. So it's the holy triangle of when the audience, the character, and the actor, when all of them are on the same page, it sucks the air out of the room. It's so powerful. And so it all comes from again, from those experiences and wanting to dig into those experiences. I really approached it from the standpoint of a laboratory, much like Stanislavski had a laboratory, much like other great theater theorists, creators and stuff had a laboratory. I wanted a laboratory just to explore the play with a group of people who perhaps had more than likely had no experience with theater, had no experience with Shakespeare. But what I was interested is not in their experience with Shakespeare or with theater. I was interested in exploring with people who were not like me, didn't look like me, didn't have the same life experiences as I had, didn't see the world in the same way that I saw the world because of my background, my rearing. And so I was interested in how would Shakespeare resonate with individuals who had vastly different lives. And that's really continued to be the great passion, is I learn so much about myself, so much about Shakespeare, so much about the art form of theater by working with this population.
So can you,
much more so than
yeah,
professional.
can you go into a little bit more like detail about how these people who have no experience with Shakespeare, like how they've received it? Is it something that they take with them outside of Behind Bars? Like,
yeah. Once a human being speaks, to be or not to be, that is the question. They are forever changed.
yeah.
When you inhabit those words, when you bring truth, your truth, to those words based on your personal experience. So there's biography in the creation of a character, but then there's always a part of the character that, like I've have many similar experiences to Macbeth, but I've never killed anyone.
Yeah.
And so I have to use my dramatic imagination, because the truth of that character killing Duncan has to be as profound as that truth that I relate to Hamlet through indecision, through having a hard time making a decision that causes harm, revenge, right? So that's why I call what I do, I really do two things. One is I go into a place to create a circle of truth. So that's a very much a practice and a pedagogy, a sequence to create the circle of truth. Once the circle of truth, which is going to be the basket that holds all of us, I can put anything into the center of that circle. So I teach people how to build circles of truth, and then whatever their passion is, it might be knitting. The warden that you meet in the documentary once said about me to a person who was interviewing him, said, Curt could come in here and teach knitting and it would be meaningful.
Yeah,
because knitting would be his passion, and it would be how he sees the world and the metaphors of knitting and stuff. And because of who he is as a human being, his authenticity, his non-judgment, one of my guys that recently, about a year ago now, got out of prison, said to me yesterday, the reason that I love you so much is that that's what you do.
Yeah.
is you just love us.
Yeah.
You love.
You still stay in contact with these people after
If
if they.
yes, if they want to, yes. It is so complex to get out of prison because we
Yeah.
don't have a lot of programming that helps people, assists them. It's why the recidivism rate is so high, because nobody wants to rent to you if you're a sex offender.
Mhm.
Nobody wants to give you a job if you're a criminal.
Mhm.
So how are people supposed to make it
Right.
on the street, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
especially the
I
warden.
never want to interfere with them. I don't want them to feel that they owe me
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah.
They always know how to get a hold of me, and a good number of them, we're family, so we do stay in contact with each other.
That's very
We
nice.
do have conversations. This same prisoner said, it is important that I talk to you several times a week, that I stay in touch with you and with a couple of our other facilitators that they're close to, because I need grounding.
Mhm.
I need reminder.
Mhm.
I otherwise I get swept up in the tragedies and the conflicts of life. So you know, it is a, a real deep honor to be able to be in uh, still walking alongside them
Yeah.
during their uh, re-implementation to society.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. I know. So you mentioned the warden. Whenever I watched documentary, I thought about how if every prison had a warden like this guy who really, valued his inmates and wanted them to be successful outside of his prison.
Right.
I feel like, and bringing in these Shakespeare Behind Bars, bringing in these programs that can help, I feel like it would make a huge difference.
Yeah, there's everyone that certainly is an arts practitioner that meets the warden in that documentary always says exactly the same
Yeah.
thing, and it's true. I mean, I've been very fortunate that I've worked for 26 years. We've had a program in Luther Luckett in Kentucky
Mhm.
for 26 years. That's a bunch of wardens, it's a bunch of commissioners, it's a bunch of governors, it's a bunch of different people. I've been fortunate to be able to continue, which is rare for any volunteer program to last that long, because you're going to always encounter someone that's not a program person and want to kick you out. And I have been kicked out by a rogue who booted me out without the authority from above,
Oh,
and so
wow.
he suffered the consequence of that. He's no longer in corrections. He
Oh my
retired
gosh.
um, because he didn't understand the behind the scenes work that I do to maintain integrity
Right.
with the corrections. Doesn't mean I couldn't be kicked out tomorrow. And I have been outside the prison since March 11th, 2020, due to COVID.
Yeah.
So I now have had to reinvent myself. So
Right.
I wrote a textbook that was a self-directed writing program that's
Okay.
based on Shakespeare, because I knew the guys would probably be in isolation and
Yeah.
would have lots of time alone, and I wanted to give them something active to work on. So in Michigan, we communicated via the Postal Service, which is deadly slow. So when I implemented it in 2 prisons in Kentucky, I got permission to use the correctional email, which is much faster. And I pay, they charge you like a stamp would cost for a letter, and I pay for all of that for them, so there's no cost to them. And then I now have 2 virtual programs, both in Kentucky. One is in the in fact, at 11, I'll be joining the group at Luckett that we just had our first meeting on November 8th virtually. So we're back. It's an impractical, difficult medium
You have
to
to,
work in,
yeah,
but
yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. I mean,
yeah. And then my program in Chicago with the juveniles last year was virtual. This year we went face to face. So we were we quarantined, we tested, took the quick test every Wednesday and Sunday when we would go into the facility. We all had to be vaccinated and now boosted. We all wear masks. And so we just finished a 10-week session there with no consequences. We all.
good. That's good to hear the success,
Yeah,
especially with COVID. I didn't even think about that, how that might have affected your program. That's
yeah.
crazy. But so tell me about the juveniles. Is it the younger kids now that you're working with?
Yeah, they're depending on how they're defined by, when do you become an adult, it's different from
Right.
state to state. They have young men in this facility that are 12 to 20.
Oh wow, that's a
And then
huge
it's
age
a
gap.
volunteer program. So we had 9 youth that joined us for the journey. Average age was around 15.
Okay. Wow, that's so. And you have to get them to. How did you get them to understand the dialogue of Shakespeare at that like young age? I mean, in terms of
Well,
memorizing,
I cut my teeth on teaching Shakespeare to public school, middle school students. If you can teach Shakespeare to middle school students, public middle schools, you can teach Shakespeare to anybody.
Yeah,
And so that's my barometer is if I learn to teach it to them, which means teaching means engagement,
right.
passion, accomplishments, all of those things. So yes, juveniles that are incarcerated are obviously the education system has failed them, whether it was academically, whether it was behaviorally, emotionally, whatever it was, they failed. So they don't have a very, not oftentimes don't have a very positive outlook on education.
Right.
Because it's oftentimes a challenge for them. We embrace that, and we're teaching Shakespeare is really eliminating Shakespeare. It just means breaking it down for them, breaking, the Shakespeare's is rhythmic prose and iambic pentameter poetry and rhymed often and huge vocabulary. And so you just teach them how to navigate the speech for understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
And once you break down that barrier of getting them to realize that they do have the intellect to understand and speak the speech, then what happens is they get captured in what Shakespeare is exploring, the meaning in the text and why he thinks this is an important story to tell and what he hopes his audience will take away with them about this play that he's written, because there was a reason he chose that play, that story at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm. So are there any different difficulties and obstacles versus the juveniles and the inmates in Kentucky? Like, how do you see them compare?
They're completely different.
Yeah.
The only thing that they share is that they're human beings.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they have similar experiences and come from similar backgrounds to incarcerated adults, because really systemic racism is what drives all of society's ills. Mm-hmm. I work with about 80% BIPOC and about 10% LGBTQ. You look at me, I'm an adult white male.
Yes.
So I'm vastly different. But I'm a human being first and foremost. So it is about finding the humanness. It's about asking this overarching question, what does it mean to be a human being? And then under that, there are 4 questions that we explore every day. Who am I? What do I love? How will I live my life knowing I will die? And what is my gift to humankind? And I use art, theater, collected works of William Shakespeare, and original writing to get at what it means to be a human being, to explore that, to understand it, and then the 4 subsidiary questions.
So those I know we mentioned hope a little bit in the beginning. So those juveniles, they have like something in terms of hope to look forward to, correct? Like
Well, they look forward to getting out, as
correct.
everyone who's incarcerated,
Yeah.
basically everyone who's incarcerated looks forward to getting out.
Yeah.
We want to go a little deeper than that, in that both the correctional system and we artists want them to be successful in life. So we want to give them the tools that they will need to be successful, to not come back, to stay out of prison. So, the boys have to get a GED or the, equivalent, because they've dropped out of school. And so they are one of the big hurdles they have to get over is before they are released, they have to possess a GED. Again, it's an attempt to help them be successful, because they're not thinking that a GED is very important. But we all know that, to get a job, to get a decent job, you need to have education. You need to be trained to do something.
Yeah. So those inmates that you're working with, the adult gentlemen, are they the ones that don't really have, they've been sentenced without parole and they don't have any like hope to look forward to? How do you
Yeah, it's why that the work
that?
it's the work that we do,
yeah,
has to be meaningful, because you have to find meaning.
Yeah.
And every human being that's incarcerated is living their life right now. It's not going to start living when they get out. A lot of them think about that, want that to happen, but when I get out, I'll behave, no, you can live a deeply meaningful life. And I have had over 26 years, obviously there have been deaths of individuals who've died in prison. But their life wasn't meaningless. Their life, because they committed to helping others. It's one of the things that the circle advocates, and that is, be of assistance to others. If you're depressed or anxious, go help somebody. There's always somebody that needs help. So that's what we advocate for, is you can live a meaningful life inside prison. And some people, perhaps, I don't believe in fate, but perhaps it was their fate to end up in prison because they were needed there. I want them to feel that they're needed there. I want them to feel that they can make life better for themselves and for others. The world they live in is their life. Yeah. So what are you going to do with that is always the question. So what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that time?
Yeah. I mean, that's great. I mean, that gives them hope and something to look forward to in there as well, giving them a sense of meaning. And I know that's a lot of what Shakespeare's about, is putting meaning on everything that's happening, on the characters. Like, so the person who played Prospero in the documentary, did you talk to him about how it's been talked about how Prospero is a reflection of Shakespeare himself, or
that actor Hal sadly is still in prison.
Yeah.
He comes up for parole in 2025. He'll have done over 30 years, so we're hopeful he'll go home.
Yeah.
He's not a threat. So he, as an actor, is a founder of Shakespeare Behind Bars. So he has played more Shakespearean characters than most any professional actor anywhere in the world.
Wow.
He's played more female characters than any actor.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so he's a very, very high level, highly talented, highly trained, highly sophisticated actor. So we started the program in 1995, and that documentary was shot in 2003. So he had 8 years of training that went into his choosing to play Prospero and doing such an amazing job with the role. And if he were going to play it again today, he'd be even better because he just keeps continuing to develop.
Mm-hmm. That's really
He
cool.
played Lear a couple of years ago, and for me, it is a definitive Lear. And I've seen some famous actors play Lear, but his depth of understanding and his relationship with the fool was just truly, in fact, it was the best Shakespeare Behind Bars production I've ever seen, bar none.
Yeah.
By the best, what I mean is the actors had cast themselves so well.
Yeah.
And they were so deeply rooted in the text and in the exploration and in the moment to moment that it just was transformational, transcendental.
Yeah. So with these 8 years of practice that goes into it, like, so what do these like practice sessions look like whenever you go?
It's like a rehearsal.
It's like a normal rehearsal?
If you came in and sat in on, you would recognize many rehearsals you've sat in. What you would see is, however, is that I don't function as a director. I function as a facilitator. I'm there to ask questions. I'm there to seek for a deeper truth, to challenge them. And you would see we function very much as an ensemble in that if anyone has a good idea or a suggestion, they're allowed to make it.
Everybody puts their suggestions in and helps each other out.
And they also understand that when is a good time to suggest that, because you can suggest it at the wrong time and piss somebody off or frustrate them, and that's not the intention. But we all work together.
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of drama going on in there too between the casting, which was pretty funny to see in the documentary. But they always
Ron and Hal always had butted heads, but I mean, they deeply care about each other and have deep respect for each other. They just don't function in the same way. So and I wanted those moments to be in the documentary. I wanted the documentarians who were brilliant to share the good, the bad, and the ugly.
What role did you play in the documentary process? Like,
I'm just in it.
You're just in it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want the documentary to be about me. I wanted it to be about the men. I would be a character in it, and I would and I am a character in it, and I am fleshed out. They do the Curt section where it's time to explore and ask questions and stuff. So, but I didn't want to be the focal point, because the miracle is not in me. The miracle is in the men.
Yeah.
The miracle is in what they are able to accomplish. So that's one of the reasons I do the work, is I have an addiction to miracles, both those miracles that happen in myself, but also the miracles that happen in development with my colleagues.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we'll end there. I think it's a pretty good stopping point. Thank you so much for taking some of your time of your morning and having this interview with me. I appreciate it.
I'm going to send you, first of all, you should Google Bridget McCarty.
Okay.
She is an amazing human being. She trained as an intern with me in the prison here in Michigan. She's a graduate of a program that my wife is the chair of the department. She's really quite remarkable. She's now teaching. She's a certified mental health person, so she teaches workshops and just got accepted to get her master's degree.
Oh, that's great.
And she knows everybody in Atlanta and knows people that work in corrections. So you could find her also on Facebook.
Okay.
But I'll send you her email, and I'll connect you to her via an email.
Yeah, that would be great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Yeah, good
And
luck.
if you have more questions, check in.
Of course, thank you. And thank you for responding to me as
You
quickly
bet.
as you did. Good luck
Have a good one.
at 11. Yes, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.